Good morning, everybody. It's February 7, about a quarter after 11. We actually got here a lot earlier today than that. Valentina was here for a bit, and she's got to go to work. She does a 12:30 to 9 shift, so she came out earlier this morning with me to start trying to figure out a color for this. We lime washed it thinking it would do well. We thought that's what we were going to want, but we didn't like it was a little bit too yellowish. And then she started mixing with the paint that we're using on the doors and bringing it to a color that'll match the doors. We're thinking hopefully this is going to dry more and it's going to tie to this color. We hope. Also, I did this thing yesterday. And when Valentina saw it, she loved it and doesn't want to whitewash it now. She doesn't want to put caulking anywhere on it. She doesn't want to put wood filler anywhere on it. And I'm not a woodworker. I mean, I'm a DIY beginner, and that's where I plan on staying. I don't plan on becoming some professional or honing my skills on woodworking. So the gaps that are there, we're just going to accept them. This gap here. One over there. So some of these gaps we're going to accept and just leave them because she likes the rusticness of it. And because I was trying to match this to the windows, even though in the long run it ended up still being a little bit off, like you can see, I don't know if you can see this from here to here is actually shorter than here in the middle. It sort of matches here. And I was trying to bring up the whole thing to match. So what I was trying to accomplish, it did it a little bit, but not fully. So what I'm going to do in order to hide this is I'm going to put another trim piece right here. So you won't see that, and it'll tie it all in. Meanwhile, yesterday I finished all the interior of those ones. Started on this one and caulked all the rest of the windows and cleaned them up this morning. I caulked them yesterday. And then while Valentina was doing this, I put the bottom pieces in, top pieces, and now I'm ready to do side pieces. And I think it's going to take me all day to do all those interior ones. I bought wood to go around this, but I can't do it until she finishes that. Same thing with like doing the fascia part of it. I really can't do the fascia on this side because she's still got to do the sides of this. And it'll be okay if she makes a mess because I'm going to cover it. So anyway, we'll do what we can. We're working on it. I this time brought in my sawhorses and made a platform. I'm loving it a million times better. I didn't realize it exhausts me going down to the floor and getting up, going down to the floor and getting up. This is so much better. I love it. All right, back to work. All right, guys, about 1:30. I've worked myself that I'm done with this. I'm done with that one. And the only ones I have left are the ones in the bedroom when it's coming to the interior part, I mean. And this one, and then I was thinking I might be able to do part of this one. I just can't have anything poking out past. So I have a bit of a system now, and thought I'd go ahead and just show you guys, fast forward on some of it, what I do, and some of it regular speed. All right, here we go. The thing I'm doing is I come over here to the corners and I check and see some of the Tyvek is not cut in the corners and kind of rounded, so that ends up making my measurements a little off, or I can't push down if that's not cut. So that's the first thing I'm doing, is I'm looking around and making sure that's all good. Second thing I'm doing is I'm taking my little improvised scraper here, and I go, this one doesn't need it, but just for instance, sometimes the drywall guys cut a little bit not well enough, and this will be higher than this. So I just make sure if I see high spots, I go, you know, along here and level things out. This one looks pretty good. Next thing I'm doing too is while I'm at it, I'll go along here and just make sure there's no buildup of caulking on the window. I make quite a mess and some not, but I go ahead and just get it one more little cleaning with the broom. I actually open it up as well while I'm working on it, because you'll see in a minute when I'm nailing this, it's easier with this up because I get close to here. And this little lip to the window is in the way when I do that. And then on top as well, it's, I gotta keep the window down enough when I'm doing the top. Next I'm measuring, the first thing I do when I'm doing these is I do the bottom one first. And they're supposed to be 36, but sometimes 36 inches can be kind of tight. You know, DIYer guy, and I didn't know what I was really doing or the ramifications of how, when I built the window frames with the headers and all that stuff, when you don't know what you're doing and you're just doing what you're told, you don't know how important it is later or what to look for or whatever. So when you get to this point and a lot of other points, when you're putting the windows in, when you're doing a lot of different things, your frames they don't always end up squared perfectly. So now when I'm doing this, I got to measure every single one individually, every single window, because if they're off just an eighth of an inch or a quarter of an inch, that shows when you're doing your trim. So that is what it is. So that's why I'm measuring every single time. And the bottom one, I'm using 1x4s to do the insides, but the bottom one, I'm not ripping it to fit inside. I'm letting it hang over a little bit. It gives it a little bit of a shelf, and then plus I'm putting trim underneath it, which almost butts up even to it. So that's the reason for that. I've been using the wood that I bought and that's been on the trailer versus what I have in the house. I'm going to use this up first, because why carry that all in here and pile it up and then move it from that pile to whatever project I'm doing right now? Might as well leave it out there, just pick it up and come in and go straight to the job. This is a piece I already had left over, and this one's going to be approximately 36 inches already, because all my 1x6s or 1x4s that I'm using right now are 6-footers. So they come out, it's a really nice size for my windows, because basically the bottoms are 3 feet, 36 inches, and the height are 72 inches. They're 6-footers. But because I do have the 1x's on each end, it ends up being about 70 inches point something. So I do a little bit of trim. But so as you see, I have a lot of little pieces. I'm not wasting too much wood, and then I'm also ripping these for the one inside, and I'm going to use these for something someday. I don't know what, but I'll be using them for something. So I'm going to verify and make sure this is 36 inches. It is right on it. It's a little bit long, so we're going to go over and see if it'll fit, just in case. One more thing I forgot to point out is, sometimes, because there's Tyvek tape going over everything, I don't see everything. And I'll lay a piece of wood down and say, oh, this is kind of floppy. And sometimes it's caused by a little piece of a nail sticking out. Could be a head, could be the other end, it doesn't, whatever. So I pound that in. But I found those randomly here and there. We had the Tyvek paper in before we put the windows in, obviously. So sometimes screws came in and you don't see it because it's under the Tyvek. Next, when I have my piece of wood, I'm thinking about what do I want to face out, what do I want to hide, because some of them got knots or they got chunks cut or just pieces. So I try to, this is Home Depot wood, so you're never going to find a perfect solution, but you do the best you can. And this one happens to fit in just right without me having to cut it, so we're lucky on that. Next part is probably one of the trickiest parts for me, and that's getting this square. You don't want it tilting down, you don't want it tilting up like this. Most of the time it is tilting down. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a square and putting it on here, and then it generally always needs to be tilted up slightly from the front. And I have a bunch of shims. Some are store-bought, but I'm finding some of them are not thick enough, the store-bought ones, and then some of them are not thin enough. So that looks pretty good. And also nailing the back a little bit toward the back gets it in there, but it still leaves me room to play in the front if I need. So I'll go ahead and nail in the back, one on each side. Go ahead and check my square again. That's good. That one's not good. So we need to raise it up slightly. That's not a thick enough one. So yeah, like I said, I made, some of them are homemade and some of them are Home Depot. The ones from Home Depot are super cheap. It's totally worth the buy. It's $1.87, I think it was. All right, much better. It looks like from above. I don't want to go into the sheetrock. I don't know if it's okay to go into sheetrock, but my instincts say no. So that's how I'll do that. And then I'm usually pushing this up against there as much as possible as well, so it's fairly flush. So yeah, I'm going about every 4 to 6 inches. And then I do a second line kind of in between those. I don't go all the way down to the end, although this one I'm going to right now, just because I want it spaced correctly, but I usually don't. My spacing is a little better. So I'm pretty happy with that, and you know, it's all the style you want. We're not going to fill these nail heads in with wood putty. We're not going to try to hide them. I've got them, they're buried just under the surface. So when we paint it, we're not going to paint it, we're actually going to just put a clear coat on it so that it shows natural. That's just going to be, to us, some of the charm. It's going to be rustic looking. Next, we're doing the top piece, which is also 36 inches generally. I went up there and measured it, and it's approximate. I admit that sometimes I cut it to the 36, but it's not exactly accurate, and sometimes I have to do multiple cuts. Again, I'm looking at how the board is laid out, where's the knots, where's the imperfections. I marked it 36 inches, and I use my square. Okay, now for all of the rest, the first one was the bottom, so we don't trim it, we don't rip it. But all the rest of them, we rip. All of these have a sticker, and I don't mind taking the sticker off. Sometimes that ends up being the best side. But if the other side's just as good, I won't do that. You know, I won't. I'll have that face down. So yeah, I'm looking at each side. Now remember, these also are going to be, since they're 6 footers and I cut them, if I cut it pretty accurately, which that one did, they're both 36, you know, they're both cut exactly the same. So you tend to cut one in half. You almost have, almost every time, one for the top and one for the bottom. This one, now, because I'm going to trim it, I don't want, this one's got a divot in it. It's got a couple of little chinks out of it. And so I want to use this one on this piece because it's going to be high. We're not going to see it as much. And I can trim this. I wouldn't want this on the bottom where you could see it. Both sides need to be cut actually. Not liking either side. So then I take that another step further and I say, okay, if I'm cutting, you know, it's like an inch or so in, am I going to hit knots? This one I might hit this knot. Hopefully I'll be right on that side of it. And then what could I hide? So this piece is a little bit less of a chunk out of it than this side. So I can put this up against the wall and you won't see it. The rest of this looks pretty decent. Next, we're going to make sure this all fits proper before we go further. I'm going to be, again, I'm reanalyzing the wood, seeing is there anything that is necessary that I hide, which this little spot right here is a chunk. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a little bit chunked out. So I definitely want that part toward the back. And what do I want to see from the room? Think, and then the part that I cut, that I just ripped, you can see it's actually done quite well, but you can see a little bit of imperfection. You can see where the saw blade went through. So sometimes you don't always want that either. Anyway, I think that's what we're going to do, is we're going to put it like this. Now we're going to see if it fits, and it doesn't. And this is something that you go off of 36 and sometimes it's just a little bit tight. So I'm going to go over there and shave off a little piece and try again. All right, we took it over there and shaved it, and it fits now. The next thing we're looking at is this distance. This one is pretty accurate. This one's pretty good. Now some of them, maybe this end is lower than this end. In which case I start with the lower end, I nail it, and then I shim the other side to bring it down to look somewhat accurate. It doesn't have to be super perfect, in my opinion, but just so it's not so off that it's super noticeable. You don't want it to look terrible, you know. So on the tops and the sides, I don't do a double line. Double line on the bottom too, because we'll be putting things on them, and Roman, the little grandkid, he'll be around pulling on it and stuff, so I want it to be stronger. But on the sides and the top, I'm just doing a single line, 2 on the ends, because nothing's going to be pressuring this. And then the sides are in between these, so it's also supporting it. So next step is doing the sides. I do them one at a time. I don't do anything mass production because the measurements are sometimes different. That's why it's taking me so long. And that's why maybe professionals would be faster, because they probably would have done their windows a little bit more accurately. And then also when you place your window in, if, you know, I had the boys helping me and they were on the outside, I was on the inside holding the windows, and we didn't know exactly what we were doing. I was trying to get them to square them up as much as possible on the openings, but they didn't all end up that way. And I could see that when I put the trim on the outside, they were not squared. But trim helps on the inside and outside to help hide that. But I know it's there, and I know that they're not perfectly square. Most of them are somewhere about 70¼ inches. That's what's the overall average. But they can be a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. All right, we're showing about 70 3/8 on that one. Again, it's all the same procedure. Every time I'm going to cut one, I look at the ends and see if one of the ends are scuffed up, and that would be a good end to cut off. I mean, they're only 72 inches, probably a little bit longer than that. But if there's one end that's a little bit scuffed, might as well take those 2 inches off. So we got 70 3/8. Have those accidents that happen, and they're really, really convenient. The way I lined up my saws today is this handle to the saw ends up flattening out my boards really nicely, so I can have a flat surface. So now all I have to do is worry about this end. I don't have to hold it up. I tend to make my lines and cut on the outside of them, and it's okay for me. A professional might get frustrated with the way I do it, but I'm okay if it doesn't work the first time, if I have to come back over and cut again. But I want them to be long enough. I learned that on that first kitchen window. There was a couple I didn't make quite long enough, and now that's going to bother me probably. But I can't take them apart now because I put them all together. Again, we ripped the side ones too, so I'm looking at this, and I don't have too much in the way of chunks on the outside that look bad, but I do have knots along here that I'm thinking, yeah, this side, if I went down, I would hit this knot, and then that part would fall out, or like half of it would fall out. So I think this will be the better side. I think I'm going to cut them, be able to clear both of those knots. Okay, so this fit in. I did have to take it back and trim it, just the smidgenest of smidgens. So what I do is I push this up really nicely tight, and I look to see if this part is lined up with the plastic part, and they're different. I mean, I didn't center these windows. I learned so much on this house, how important it is to center the windows if you want your trim to be the same on the inside. My windows sit side to side. One side is showing this much plastic, the other side is flush. This one's really flush. That means that side's not gonna be. It's gonna have that much of a space. And to be honest, I don't think anybody's gonna pay attention or see it that much. It's not gonna bother you once you're living in it. But it is definitely a big blemish. It's a flaw on my part. I just didn't know, and I didn't have a professional helping me. You know, Roger basically just told me, do it. He wasn't here to help me. He didn't show me anything. So I was just like off of videos a little bit, but there's certain things that you'd have to watch a lot of videos to maybe catch somebody say certain things that you need to hear. Again, I start at whatever end I'm not going to need to shim. On this one, I don't need to shim either end. It's pretty much straight all the way up. So I just went ahead and start here. And then again, I'm doing every about 4 to 6 inches down the middle of the trim. Now sometimes I have a little problem right here. I don't know if you can see this. I'll move the ladder out of the way. So I shimmed this one to be flat as best I can, but I don't shim the tops or the sides to make sure they're flat, flat this way. If they had to be this way a little bit or a little this way, I'm not shimming it for that or trying to do that. As a result though, I get a little bit of a gap up there once in a while. Now there's two things that are gonna kind of help that, but that gap right there is always gonna be there because Valentina said she's okay with that look and we're not gonna fill them in or do anything. So, but when I do the fascia part, it's gonna cover some of that. It's gonna cover the whole front. You're not gonna see that part. At the M3/8 again. Makes it somewhat square. And like I said, sometimes you get the sticker side coming out. So the sticker, luckily, seems to come off pretty easily. There you go. That's what I go through every time doing each window. Sometimes it's good for me to record myself doing this because while I'm doing it, I think of things. So like I said, there was a gap here and I got to thinking, oh, after I put these in, I can take the screwdriver and stick it in there and kind of pull it down. It ain't gonna be perfect, but a little bit better. This one's already corrected that one too. The other thing that I've already mentioned, but I was eyeballing this to make sure this was even all the way down. But I'll show you. See, so there's this much space on this side, but there's a very small space on this side. So that's just the way it goes. When you find out this late in the game about that kind of a thing, there's nothing you can do about it. Pulling this down works great, puts that together, I like that. And then my next pieces, they overlap these. So this will all be hidden, so there'll just be a small gap there. That one's a little bit better, but yeah. And so what I do too, I wanted to show the complete process on one window so you can see everything I'm doing, but I usually, what I've been doing is going ahead and doing the bottom ones first because I don't have to trim them and I just go bang, 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 bang. And then I come back and do top, 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 and then do all the sides. It just simplifies it a little bit more, ends up in similar cuts. So there you have it. Hope that helps if anybody out there is doing trim on the inside of the window. I know there's a million different ways and I'm probably not doing it right, but I'm a DIY beginner. I just keep saying that so people understand where I'm coming from, but I'm a video watcher and a researcher and I see how people do things, but then sometimes I don't know how you would figure this out unless you just watch a lot of video, and I didn't watch a lot of video. I just did this with what my instincts told me and just kind of what came naturally. So anyway, that's what we're doing. In this previous video, maybe yesterday's video, but I just wanted to point this out also, that I'm using 1 1/4 inch nails on the inside, the part that I just showed you, on the insides of the windows. 1 1/4 inch because this is only probably 3/4. So I'm getting at least a 1/2 inch into the wood. approximately. But then on the sides, I'm using 1.5 inch because I'm going through this size and then going through 1/2 inch drywall before I hit a stud. So I'm using 1.5 to compensate a 1/4 inch. It's not gonna sink way in, but I think because it's all tied together, I mean, I grab onto this, it's very tight. It's not going anywhere, so I think it's reaching in plenty fine. It's probably getting close to 1/2 inch into the wood. All right, back to work. As I finished, I got the interior of every window done in the house except this one. I did the top, and then I thought about it. I really probably shouldn't do that because Valentina needs to paint the inside of all here in white and might as well not make it difficult by putting trim in here. I can cover up this part, and she didn't even have to paint it. But again, washer and dryer are barely going to fit in and maybe right up against here. So I'm not going to put any more. I just knew that piece wasn't going to be affected. But then after I put it in, I thought, oops, Valentina's got to paint. Sorry, I have sawdust in my throat probably. I don't know. Coughing. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and try to start the next process and continuing on trimming on the outside. Inside's a lot easier than the outside. Inside is pretty consistent. It's pretty easy to set up a routine, but getting this set up correctly up there and down here and doing the little cuts and stuff, it's a lot more involved. So, well, maybe I'll go ahead and start for now. I got a little bit of time before it starts getting dark, so might as well keep on keeping on. All right, guys, it's after 5:30 a little bit, and I got this centerpiece and this centerpiece. They're not perfect, but I'm figuring out how to adjust the wood that's down here to, when I make little mistakes, I can adjust the wood to fit into it. So that's what I'm doing. And I have the windows open, it's a little warm, just from me working. And I start smelling rain, even though there's no rain in the forecast. But it does look like it could rain. So I started smelling it, and then I looked on my forecast, or the weather again. Now it's saying 100% chance of rain at 6 and 7. It's after 5:30 now. So I'm going to close this up, and then possibly go get I got to go out here and check the tarp situation and cover up some things. I've got all my wood out there. If it's not going to rain hard, it's no big deal, but I got that wood there, and I've got this stuff. And this stuff has been getting wet almost every day. It's been saying it keeps taking rain off the forecast, and then it sprinkles a little bit. It hasn't been anything super dumpy or bad, so everything's been okay so far, but not like in some of the stuff sitting out here. So let me see what I can figure out. All right, guys, about 6 o'clock. Locked everything up. I had one tarp that I was able to cover my wood, but that stuff over there, it just ain't going to be covered. Hopefully it doesn't rain too bad. It's sprinkling. I don't know if you can see this on my windshield or not. If it's only a mist like this, just a sprinkle, I think everything will be all right. But I don't have another tarp, and I don't want to take all that stuff in. Just be in my way, and I'd have to keep taking it back out. All right. Well, once I get maybe the bedroom done and completed there, then I can move that stuff in there because I won't be in the bedroom so much. However, Valentina still needs to paint all the roof, or the ceiling. So the ceiling needs to get done, then I can move stuff in. So I don't want her dripping and sprinkling on stuff too. So I think I'll be back out here tomorrow. That's the plan.